Okay, the recording has started. So yes, Tanya ji, we can start today's session.
Yes,
I
thank you.
I gave the backdrop, the recap that I gave was correct.
Yes, absolutely. As always. Yes, thank you, Dr. Nidhi. And so I'll just quickly share my screen and share the PPT. Right,
Participants can also take note of the links that are being shared on the WhatsApp group after the session, right? Yeah, you
yeah.
can make it full screen, Tanya ji, if possible.
Yes, is it full screen now?
Yes, it is full screen. Great, good to go.
Great. So I think we stopped on this slide yesterday, which talked about the text that went into the description of villages as a part of its content. Um, so today, just move into some details about that. So in the Rig Veda, you see the mention of gram and district. These are the respective, verses in the Rig Veda that you can refer to, the 10th mandala mostly, or the 10th book. Manusmriti in the 7th book also makes a mention of the hierarchy of administrative divisions, where you had one headman for every village, and then one headman for 10 villages, and then one headman for 100 villages, and so on and so forth. So there was a hierarchy of, somebody overlooking one village, and then there's a group of villages, and then there is group of, multiple blocks, etc., etc. So similar instructions were also given in detail towards the king's duties towards the grammars in the Mahabharata. You can refer to these verses and the particular quotes that are given in the brackets. The Apastamba Sutras, Shukraniti, they all go into, and there's not much difference between their description. Um, if you also go into Kautilya's Arthashastra, you will be surprised to find that there is almost no difference in this kind of hierarchical setup. The numbers might change of the population in a particular village, or the number of villages that a particular headman oversees, etc. But the whole infrastructure is very similar, which means that for so many thousands of years, it was working pretty well, and nobody saw any need to disrupt that particular system. So each headman of these particular divisions of villages reported to the one above them. So the one headman will report to the one who is overlooking 10 villages, and so on and so forth. Taxes were collected in kind. There was no monetary, kind of consideration taken into that. Whatever the village produced, it was to be provided, a certain percentage of it, normally 1/6, was to be provided to the king, uh, in order for him to carry out his duties in a proper manner without needing to bother about his livelihood or anything, because his main duty was that he was chosen by the people to take care of their security, their safety, and their overall growth, the economy. So in that fashion, they are supposed to pay something back to maintain the upkeep of that entire administration. So this was the understanding that people had. Appeals of disputes, other governance related matters, all these things went through these hierarchies before it reached the king, if it was not resolvable by these particular heads of kulas, the elders that head of kulas, head of the gram, head of etc. Jatis, they all looked into whatever issues came up, property related or crime related. If it was too grave, not satisfying the both the appellant and the respondent, then it could go to the king at the end. So this was a setup that was maintained for jurisprudence also, governance as well as jurisprudence. Uh, and it was the headman of the district for particular amount of villages taken together. The district was set up, and this person was somebody who then reported directly to the king about what is happening under that particular district. So now we come to the question that was this extortionist, this kind of tax that was collected by them. We keep hearing a lot of horror stories about, the lagan that was put on people. Kings were just becoming, leisure oriented, indulgent, so on, so forth, etc. But you will be surprised to see that throughout the texts that mention, the kind of taxation that is being paid to the king. And mind you, these people who are writing these texts are not in any way, connected. Like you see Shukraniti, or if you see Gautam's, sutras, or you see Bodhayan or this, these people are not paid by, the royal people or anybody for that matter, or the Vaishyas to write these books. They are respected people. There are people who are, living in the forest area. They are reflecting upon certain aspects of statecraft, just like Kautilya did, and they are reporting as it is. Just like when Valmiki wrote the Ramayana, he was reporting as it is because he was a contemporary of Sri Ram. So casting aspersions on people is the first common thing that normally comes up, that, all these good things that are written are normally maybe paid for it. They were not functioning like in today's times. There was abundance. They were not, hard pressed for money or any kind of thing. They had the support of people. People took care of their saints, their sages. The king was nowhere in the game at all, and people were very aware. People were very alert. So you have these texts, and then these texts were accepted by people in general. So it's not like they were writing some fictional or some, paid promotion of the king. But these people, when they write in a very, as it is manner. So they talk about certain times, and these are rules, these are general principles that were followed, that at any point in time, if there wasn't enough produce due to multiple reasons in the village, whether it is a governance related issue, then the king has to be responsible, and maybe he could be removed. The people could, revolt against him, or he could take corrective action at the right time and gain the respect of people again in order to continue. But if it was due to natural reasons, then also there were mitigative efforts, of course, but then the king could not be blamed for that. So depending upon particular reasons, if the produce was not enough and only sufficed for the villagers' needs, the king then had the duty to exempt that particular village from taxes, village or villages from taxes, till the time they were able to pay again. Now, during these times, you will see the kind of brotherhood that these villages had. You'll see it even now. If you go to, villages, you will see this brotherhood even. It's a general mentality and feeling of the village people that you have, like I said yesterday, if somebody has something extra, they will not show off about it. They will not become exclusive or exotic. They will try to, cut down the discomfort of the other or the embarrassment of the other and invite them and even help them in coming to that level. You see this even now. See the story of, Prajapati Bhai, Mansukh Bhai Prajapati. Just look at his story, the way he went through bad times, and his employer, who had, they were making mittika pans and all that for selling. So this factory, when he wanted to set up his own, and this is the recent times I'm talking, it was his employer himself who gave him the initial corpus or loan to set up a small factory of his own to produce the very same goods that he is producing, or even better goods, in fact. You don't see any cutthroat competition. You see that in the corporates having in the urban areas, where monopolies and all these are unknown in villages. Nobody subscribes or ascribes to these kind of, inhuman practices. So during these times, the king was supposed to exempt this village or the villages from paying the taxes until they were able to pay again. Now, who makes up for, if the king was abundant enough, he would not require anybody else to fill in for it. But if in case there was, a kind of, missing that was supposed to be filled up, or some kind of deficit, then you will see the brotherhood of villages coming in. The neighboring villages would come forward, and they would pitch in and pay the taxes on behalf of the, or a certain part of whatever they can pay, of the abundance of the produce that they have. Normally, what happens if they produce in abundance, even after paying the taxes, after keeping for themselves, if they have something extra, then they will make some more goods to sell, outside the village, or to supply and get some more money, whatever. But in these times, they would take their abundant produce, whatever villages have, and they will then tell the king that on behalf of this particular village, these are our brothers. We will pay for them this time. And if they want to pay it back, they can pay it back at any point in time when we are in a similar situation. But nobody wished for such a situation. So it was understood that it will be paid back in the right time. So you see this brotherhood even today in the villages of Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, and all that. Like in Haryana, there is a traditional rule that you don't marry neighboring villages girls. The villages that are stuck, through borders, you don't marry, because that is a brotherhood. The boy from the other village will be a brother to the girl. This is to avoid any kind of criminal activity or eve teasing or whatever. Once you cross a village that is in your border and you go to the neighboring village, you can then marry in those kind of villages. So they call it bhaichara, or they call biradri. They're all brothers. So what was collected in kind was the taxes from the people of the goods that they produced. What was collected in monetary, coins, gold coins or silver coins, or whatever coins were in. We see coins also being minted. So what was that used for? It was used in collecting rent from people who were living on a rented kind of a accommodation. So those who are taking a land on rent for any kind of commercial activity, or so on and so forth, they will then pay that rent in monetary perspectives. So that is one thing. I think somebody has raised their hand. Would you like to take a question, Nidhiji, or should I continue?
Okay, let me check. I can't see any raised hand.
Okay. Or is it a comment or a chat or something that came in?
No, I just wrote 2 points.
Okay, great. I can't see because the PPT is in front, so I thought maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Jyoti Rani Devi ji is saying in Assam too,
Hmm.
no marriage in between the same gotra. Yes.
Yes, the same gotra applies everywhere. That is the Hindu way of looking at things. But the immediately, stuck village is also treated as a brother village.
Correct.
So,
Tanya ji, can you click on the hide button?
yes, 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
नहीं वो पीपीटी चला गया.
हाँ. Is it okay now?
हाँ, it's okay. Let's not take any questions at this moment. Please put them in the chat box. So we'll take it all together at the end.
Yes. Yes, I agree. So yes, now as I discussed in brief yesterday also, that how were these headmen, or these, the ones who are kind of, the reporting people to the king, or to the, higher up headman, how were these headmen or gramanis, or, people selected? So there was no election process that happened. There was a selection process that happened, and that happened extremely, quote unquote, democratically. How did that happen? There were a certain, set of village people. Like today, you have these rules that somebody has to be so and so, educational qualifications. Somebody has to be 18 years and above. Somebody, the teachers will, 1/3 of the votes will come from the teaching fraternity, municipal corporation elections and all. There are various there has to be a certain educational qualification, there has to be. So similarly in the village sabhas and all that, there were a certain amount of people that qualified. And then there were other rules, like you have to have some status in the standing in the, in the village. You have to have some property in your name, or either you are running some kind of commercial, or, you're doing farming. Basically, not everybody had the right to vote. You cannot be a vagabond. You cannot be somebody sitting on the street and having the right to vote and putting, or you cannot be a criminal who is, there and he is given the right to vote. The very vote is a wrong thing, but the right to choose. So here you have people who have extremely clear conduct. They have some respect in the village. They are ones who are living by, proper, dharmic conduct, etc., etc. So they were only given the right to come and choose. So there's no election, there is a selection that happens, and you have to have who are the ones who will even stand as the particular options, the candidates. They have to be people of a certain age. They have to be people who have sterling conduct. There is absolutely nothing that you can find wrong in that person, and believe you me, there were people as such available. Even now, if you go in villages, there will be a certain bunch of people who are exactly like that. Social acceptance and respect has to be there. They should be contributing to taxes, as well as they should have a knowledge of the dharma corpus. What do I mean by that? They should know some folk purana. Every jati has their own purans. Every village has its own history. They are all containing the traditions of the particular society, or the particular village, or the particular traditional understanding, or maybe they would have some kind of Puranic information, or maybe itihas ka koi gyan hoga, like Ramayan, Mahabharat. So these kind of people were who made it to the cut, made it to the list. And then these people would choose them on the basis of whatever, it has to be a resounding majority in favor of a particular candidate. How did these headmen receive their respective, subsistence? Did they get paid any kind of salary, etc., etc.? No, they were provided their subsistence, like food, drink, fuel, other things, in the form of the particular share of the taxes that was going to the king. So one particular portion of those taxes was to be kept aside for the headman. This was decided by the people and the king, and from that particular taxation, he was given his payment in kind. Every village had its own set of rules decided by the people, which was known as Gram Dharma, or the duty or the code of the village. Each kula had its own set of rules, and they were not in any way conflicting with each other. The guilds, or the corporate bodies, or the commercial bodies of traders, they had their own way of trading, how they will go about things. None of these were ever in conflict with each other, the societal or the economic or the political kind of thing. And the king always referred to these dharmas that were settled by the people while deciding any kind of case that reached him. Now let's go into the Harappan period. Dr. Vasant Shinde is a very reputed archaeologist. He's made a very compelling case in his research reports. It's there in the on the internet, in articles for leading newspapers. He's made a very compelling case for the existence of a panchayat system even in the Harappan or the Indus Valley or Saraswati civilization, as you would like to call it. Here he says that the panchayat members or elders seem to have lived in a higher town, citadel area, which is the higher kind of ground that you see when you go to the Saraswati or the Indus Valley civilization. There is one set of domestic houses that are at a lower level, and there is one citadel, or like a very it's like a parliamentary kind of a kind of a design or building, which is on a higher level. So he says that it seems that these panchayat members or the elders who were the members of the particular council, they supposed to have lived in this higher citadel area, which was away from the domestic area, so that they are not disturbed by the regular day-to-day activities of these people who are eking out a living and who are, going about their daily activities, because these elders or panchayats had a role of very deep deliberation. They had to read, they had to keep themselves updated, they had to meditate, because they had to resolve the issues, and they also had to see that nobody was having any problem while living there. So this distinction of up and down is a very natural distinction. The people also did not want these people walking around them. They want them to be in a separate, just like how kings lived later on. They were in totally separate. You see, even now the politicians live in a separate, because they have to be totally, away from run of the mill that happens, so that it doesn't disturb their way of functioning. And same way for the people. There is a, you cannot find any ruler or ruled kind of evidence in this Harappan civilization. That's what Dr. Vasant Shinde says. It seems that the people developed and maintained common or personal infrastructure systems like streets and tracks, drainage and baths, as well as toilets. So these personal or common infrastructure system, you will see people were managing and creating and designing and building these, like what? Like streets, tracks, drainage systems, baths, toilets, etc. These were all designed by the people and built by them. So it might be the Vaishyas, the merchants and traders who were putting money in. There were guilds, there were people who, kind of paid taxes, and they all had the duty to make sure that their living space or area is free of any kind of defect. On the other hand, the public properties like fortifications, public baths, irrigation systems, granaries, etc., that you see there, this seemed to have been built by the panchayat or the elders by bringing together the community resources for people in, so that this can be helpful in the times of, in bad times. So these kind of things were the kind of administrative setup that one can derive from looking at the Harappan archaeology. Now, this is Charles Metcalfe. So Charles Metcalfe was a very, reputed British officer, and he writes this in 1830 when he is writing some letters to his counterparts in England. This is what he says about the village communities. Now, this is not something new. You see the same thing being told in all the Dharmasastras, in the Itihasas, in the Vedas. Charles Metcalfe is saying the very same thing. He might not know that it's written in all these traditional books, but this is what even he said, that he admires the structure of these village communities, the way they have structured themselves. They function like little republics. They choose their own governing officer. They choose the way that they go about, and the kind of issues that they sort out, political issues, economic issues, societal issues. They were actually fully functioning, what you call republics in today's times. They have nearly everything that they want within themselves, he says. They don't have to go outside in order to get the basic daily needs met. And they are independent of any foreign relations. They don't care about maintaining relations with, far off villages or far off janapadas or cities or towns or nagaras, or they are not bothered about that. Now, we have to be very clear here that villages were never built for commercial or trading, purposes. They were built to house people. They were built for farming. They were built for producing the raw material that was to go into this. And it was basically for giving the backbone and, as you would say, the producing unit of the country. So they were to be left at that. The nagaras or the janpadas were set up on pure commercial and trading purposes, the cities or the towns. So you see that attitude, perpetuating even today. Metcalfe says that these village communities seem to last when nothing else lasts. सब कुछ खत्म हो जाता है, पर ये पता नहीं दे अमर है, मतलब ये बदलते ही नहीं है, ये आपको 1000 साल पहले भी दिखेंगे, अभी भी दिख रहे हैं. And he says maybe ये आगे चल के 1000 साल बाद भी यही ऐसे ही दिखेंगे. So he says dynasty after dynasty tumbles. revolution succeeds to revolution, but the village communities remain the same. Matlab, the invasions happen, colonialism is happening, various kings are fighting amongst each other. There are a lot of revolts happening, etc. But these village communities don't seem to change the structure. And there is a union between these communities. Like I mentioned in the previous slides, if one village falls short of the tax paying, the other brotherhood would come into play. And he says that all these union of villages, 100 villages, 150 villages, they seem to form a separate state in itself. So later on, they become Rajyas, they become Deshas, like you have Tamil Desha, Telugu Desha. These are not different countries. The Desha means that it was a separate state or a kind of a territory on its own, housing a particular ethnicity, housing a particular, people who had common culture, etc., etc. He says that this is something which is actually contributing than anything else to the preservation of the people of India. Through all the revolutions and changes, which they have suffered in very high degree, but they are still conducive to happiness and enjoyment of a great portion of freedom and independence, where the king doesn't interfere into their day-to-day affairs. Only when it is brought to his notice is when he takes it up, because they have brought it to him. So it's a very democratic setup. And if the same kind of rule you will see followed to a very great extent in the initial, kind of century that the British were here also. They did not want to meddle into these because they knew that this is what brings prosperity. So he says that I wish, therefore, that the village constitutions is never disturbed. And I dread everything that has a tendency to break them up. He says, मुझे डर लगता है किसी भी उस चीज से जो इस चीज को ब्रेकअप कर दे या इसके कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस को खराब कर दे. Well, we see that happening in the later part of the colonial, occupancy here, and it has continued after independence also. There has been no shift in the breaking up of these village communities. So the Gautam Dharma Sutra and Bodhayan Dharma Sutra, they both mention in quite a lot of detail about the villages. So they say that Gautam Rishi and Bodhayan Rishi are very renowned rishis. So they write that villages are where righteous men throng. So he says that all the righteous men of the society, they love to be, in villages. You will mostly find them in villages. This is what they write. And he says that these righteous men, you will see that they dwell in villages where there is abundance of fuel, water, fodder, sacred fuel, kusha, and garlands, etc. So what does he mean by righteous? He means dharmic individuals. So he says that access to all this must be easy in a village, and many rich people should dwell in a village. It should also abound in industrious people, where Aryas, who are virtuous, cultured, honest, and honorable men, they must form the majority in these villages. It should have a strong defense against robbers and others who disturb the peace of the villages. So under the village headman, he had a small army of his own. He had a small police functioning under his own. The village headman was told by the king to maintain these, so that in case there is any kind of, these activities of robbery or criminal activities, they immediately come swing into action. So it's not like, they did not have their own defense systems. So this is the unbroken continuity. Like I said, even today, when you see the traditional panchayat systems that are still functioning in many, there's a very good video by Arjun Kadian. I don't know if you've heard about this up and coming writer about Indian, history. He comes from Haryana. He's written this wonderful book, The Land of the Gods.
Yes.
It's on Haryana, and its connection to, the avatars, his connection to, Shivji and all that. And he's given wonderful historical, background of Haryana. So this is something that, even the javelin throwing, like Neeraj Chopra, you see, I think he's written a book on him also later on. So this community of people who used to throw these spears, he has even tracked them down. The javelin is nothing new. It's not like some foreign concept. We had spears of our own, very great spears that we used in wars, etc. So this talent and skill is not coming in a village from somebody going and practicing in some foreign, it's coming from a community that has had a history of it. So he has a very good. I'll send that link also to Nidhi ji and can share on the group, where he discusses all the different traditional panchayats that are existent even today in different parts of the country, from north to south, east to west. And he also gives their pluses and minuses and how they have, become, how they have been disturbed over time, how they have been harassed over time, etc., etc. Professor Madhu Kishore is coming up with a book. I don't know when it will be published, but it's on the Khaps of Haryana. There was a period when they were vilified like anything. I think it was 2012 or 2013, where you would read every day some report about, the Khaps being such villainous, horrible people, etc., etc., etc. I remember reading it myself, and I was convinced that these are evil institutions. But when I remember, when you go into deep into the details and you understand that what is this mainstream media, how they have all come together. First of all, you have to learn how to doubt this mainstream media, especially because they are no longer functioning as pinnacles of truth or domains of truth. They are functioning on the domain of business, and wherever money comes in. And if you see a organized effort, a very coordinated effort from from America to UK to BBC to Washington Post right till India, you have to understand that there is something very sinister in this. And what has a CARP done to a BBC in the UK or this, that they have become such vile criticizers of these. So one has to go into the details. That's where I learned from Professor Madhu Kishore that how the entire this whole setup came to be in 2012 to 2013, where they went into vilify these traditional panchayats as if to say each one of them is the most. It was a blanket statement on all of them. And it was a lot of NGOs at play, with foreign funded NGOs. And they went to the court, and you will be surprised to see that the thwarting of natural justice being done in the judiciary at that time. The judiciary admitted the case. They heard the case from one side only, the NGOs. They did not even bother to invite the representatives of the CAP that they were putting allegations on to come and give their side of the story. This went on for a good 8-9 months. Just imagine this. The respondent is not even informed that there's a case happening in the court. The one who has put the case has all the right to come and talk and give his thing and go back. And they were about to give a decision also, by the way, to ban these traditional panchayats. That is when somebody there was a summon that was given, and it got delivered by some fluke. And one of the CAP leaders, their son was an educated lawyer, and he was, most of their children are educated. It's not like he was the only one. And they then approached some lawyers, and Professor Madhu Kishore also, who was at that time taking up such activist oriented roles. And she herself was convinced that they need to be banned. She herself got convinced by reading these news reports. It was like bombarding every day. And when she heard their side of the story, and they went and asked people in the village, and they went and found out from many people, educated also, and they came to know that there's a different side to the story about this honor killing and everything. It was not CARP enforced. It was some exception, some family who was totally if a Radhika is being killed by her father today in Haryana, you cannot say all fathers are like that. You cannot say that, this is what is happening day in and day out. There are exceptions. Arushi Talwar gets murdered. You cannot say that entire parents in Delhi are, like that. So this is taking exceptions to the next level. You are branding everybody as, and when the facts are not even that they ordered for a honor killing. It was the family who took it in their own hands. I don't know for what reason. And it was labeled that this was like going on like sati, atrocity literature that was written by the British missionaries, that sati was happening like, every day, 30,000-40,000 women were being burnt. This was what they were reporting. And Meenakshi Jain ji, in her book Sati, the missionaries, propaganda, she has totally blasted this from British records themselves. So this was what was happening. See, the toolkit is the same, but it's not changed. But one has to be very alert and aware, at least, and appreciate that people who are going into the details and bringing you, what, we all love controversy and we all love, these news. But if it damages your very society, what's the use of this 2 minutes ka spice, is what I feel. So she went and she put an injunction in the court that you cannot give a judgment without hearing the other side. This went to the certain, good newspapers, which were not read so much, but they reported this. And the court then, according to court procedure, had to, give in to it, and they heard the other side, and they came to the thing that they cannot ban them because the facts are not supporting the allegations. And at the end of it, they said that the cops can have whatever sittings, whatever, बैठक जो उनकी होती है, जब भी होती है, जब लोग बुलाते हैं, पर somebody from the police, local police, has to be तैनात वहाँ पे to see if not some, weird, outlandish kind of decision is being given by them, etc., whatever. So this is what happened in that case. I don't know when she'll come out with the book, but I have read it in detail, and that entire case is just, eye-opening. Yes, so coming back, the grama or the village was always recognized as a unit of administration, as the basic unit. The economic unit was always the family, and societal, base unit was always the family, etc. But as a unit of administration, the gram or village was the first unit of administration. This is what Kautilya defines as a village population, 100 to 500 families, like kulas. Certain kulas will come together. Even now, you will go to Jammu and you will see certain, districts or certain, villages or hamlets. They have 30 to 40 families living. They will all be related in some way or the other. They have their own boundaries. They have their own defense systems, etc., etc. All classes of people lived in the villages. They were weavers. They were, They were traders. They were what you call that? They were artisans. They were farmers. There was a barber. There was a carpenter. There was a cobbler. There was a somebody, who took care of leather products. Somebody who built engineers, and so on and so forth. Then you had a temple in between. There were always temples were the societal, unit that people always made sure was there in the middle of the Grama Devta or the, Kshetra Devta or the Kul Devta would always be there. And there would always be some sort of Gurukul that would be attached. There would be a Vaidya Shala that would be attached. There would be a Gram Ka Vaidya. There would be a Gram Ka Guru. There would be a Patshala. All these things would make a particular village. So these are the different breakups that you can see. We can take some questions if we want now, Nidhi ji.
Sure. Just a moment. I think from yesterday we can start.
Yes.
Jyoti Rani ji, do you want to share your insights and comments from yesterday?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, where we had left yesterday, it was in relation to yesterday's discussion on the basis of village structure and village life, madam. So what I wanted to discuss yesterday is about, like, as madam has also said, that northeastern people has like fought for like this continuation and existence of this indigenous knowledge system, specifically in their daily life. That is true, but there are certain changes, madam, we can say. Suppose I yesterday wanted to give you one example. Assam is a hub of like different communities. I mean, among other northeastern states. And maximum diversity probably in terms of different communities, different groups, you are also going to have in Assam also. We have tribes, we have non-tribal people, we have like Buddhist, Christians, different diversity groups are there in Assam. So among those groups, one is like whom we call, that has started by Mahapurusha Shankardeva, we call him, that Vaishnavite movement. So in Vaishnavite culture, actually, there is a it is a craft actually, art that we call bhavna, which actually give us that sense of community involvement. In certain period of time, especially during the time of Ras Mahotsav, we call Ras Leela and all, people of the villages, they used to come up बच्चे से लेके बूढ़े तक, मतलब all of them, they used to come together and they used to take part in that bhavna. It's a acting craft actually. But nowadays, what we can see, madam, even that actually increases that bond among the villagers, among the people of a particular area. But what we can see with the changes with the transformation of the society, what we can see in the village, remote villages also, what the society, what the villagers, they have started doing, they have started bringing well-known artists, those who are already actors. So these things, that kind of change we can see, madam. Even as yesterday I have mentioned that I am living in a tribal society among the Bodo community for many years. In regarding today's discussion, what I can say, madam, they have still their own governance system. Suppose maybe in terms of marriage, they have their community ties. Because I have seen many families, even if it is in case of marriage or other rituals or any other problems, what the villagers they used to do, they don't help with money. They help with labor, they help with like dal, chawal, like that. If a newly married couple, they are going to start their family, so what they used to do, like whatever the day-to-day necessities, गांव वाला मिलके करके देता है, घर बना के देता है, and this is totally, this is not out of compulsion. This is a structure of their day-to-day life itself. So what I can say, as you were saying, Madam, Northeastern people, they are like continuing. Yes, they are continuing, but there are changes also that we can see. Apart from that, regarding agriculture, agricultural products and all, yes, we have varieties of, like suppose rice. In Assam, you would love to know, Madam, we call it to be komol chaul. There is no need of cooking it. You just eat overnight, you just keep it in water and automatically, like in the morning, like there is no need of cooking, you can have it. But these kind of products, it has become extinct almost.
You see, if there is no usage of gas and no usage of other stuff, then
no, no, ma'am, no, ma'am, no.
Why would industries want to promote this? So then you are getting.
That's what, madam.
So, yeah.
That's what, madam. And the processing also, it takes a lot of pain.
Yes.
Like, so these are certain reasons probably that has compelled people to transform their their, what to say, it may be agricultural products or maybe in other forms also. It may be a kind of compulsion that has become for the people, that they have started changing those basic styles. But still among, there are different societies and villages where we can see it's still visible and still exists.
Yes, I think you've made some wonderful observations there, Jyotirani ji. And, you see, when the state doesn't make anything commercially viable, that is when, even though you don't want to give up certain practices and certain foods, you have to give up, because there is absolutely no market for it. There is no, supply for it. The government doesn't give you the required, support and help to carry on these ecological friendly, practices. And it is all done not because, believing in these traditions and practices is backward or, nothing as such. Or, आपको gas पे पकाना है तो आप modern हो गए, progressive हो गए, etc., etc. That doesn't, it's not the argument in the first place. The argument in the first place is you have these traditional ecology friendly, practices which are there, but is the government supporting it? Because many of the politicians are in cahoots with corporate lobbies and bodies. So when you are doing election campaigning, these corporate bodies fund you. The state funding is a different thing. उससे किसी का कुछ होता नहीं है, because you have to do a lot of other extra things. So when these corporate bodies fund, and the people will not indulge in these kind of activities to support these kind of whatever campaigning, canvassing happens. So when you come into power, you have certain obligations to these corporate lobbies to pay back and give them certain business opportunities, which they start to do, and they start to neglect these practices, and people at the ground level think that maybe we are backward, or maybe these things are not in the use nowadays, and also we should give up, nahi to hum log backward or unprogressive कहलाए जाएंगे. But the reality is totally different. It is the political will and and that is the reason that what is happening now. When I come to you will hear a lot of the changes that are happening. Like you mentioned that when somebody gets married, the whole village will come together and give. This has always been a practice since thousands of years, because like I said, that when a village was self-sufficient, it was made sure by the king अपने आप से विलेज ऑर्गेनिकली सेटअप हो जाए. नॉर्मली रिवर्स के साइड में, या वी हैव सो मेनी रिवर्स के बगल में, इवन इन द नाइल यू विल सी मोस्ट ऑफ द सिविलाइजेशन अकर्ड नियर इट. So you'll see many rivers in India. You will see, that's why उन rivers को जननी या माँ कह के संबोधित करते हैं. वो इसलिए करते हैं, कोई अंधविश्वास नहीं है ये. वो इसलिए करते हैं क्योंकि इन्हीं नदियों ने सिविलाइजेशन को जन्म दिया. So that is why you revere it as a mother, because of them you are alive today. Your ancestors came into being. It gave you abundance. So that is why you treat them as mothers. But आजकल के corporate lingo में क्या हो गया है, माताओं को भी resource के तौर पे देखा जाता है. Like I remember, I was reading this book by Dr. S.K. Chakraborty. It's called Ethical Management or something like that. It's a yellow and blue book. You'll get it on Amazon. S.K. Chakraborty, Ethics in Management, something like that. Please do look it up. He says that he was surprised to hear in a very, a big multinational organization's corporate, corporate meeting where he was a part of it. One of the people who had supposed to have studied from abroad, some elite universities and all, and come, and he was making an argument. Uska argument kya tha ki we have to be resource, human resource. Even humans are treated as resources, by the way. They're not treated as human beings. आप जो है वो क्या कहते हैं उसको resource हैं. तो उसके बाद वो क्या, हाँ, मीटिंग में वो जो बोलते हैं वो, he said I was shocked to hear it, because he says that everything that has sustained you from childhood till now, everything is a resource. So this gentleman asked him, ki, your mother also sustained you when you were born, right? What is she? He said, she is also a resource. कल को उनका काम खत्म हो जाएगा तो you will replace her with something else. So this kind of mentality doesn't come from the India that these villagers know. वो ये सब, this only comes into your mind when you get too commercialized, or you think that money is everything. And आप like हमारे जो दादा दादी नाना नानी बोलते हैं कि जब अन्न और धान और जल खत्म हो जाएगा तो खाइए पैसे और रुपये. So say कि so money, can it give you food if you don't have food around you? They give you very good gyan, which are very deep philosophical gyan, but it sounds like taunts. So
तान्या जी just interrupt कर रही हूँ क्योंकि एक और hand raised है.
हाँ, sure.
नकुल जी का question लेंगे. And I think वर्षा जी का भी कल कोई question था. We can take that. So Nakul Sharma ji, please go ahead.
जी, namaste everyone. Ma'am, continuing with the discussion that we that was there yesterday. I mean, I couldn't ask my question, but so I want to know, because coming from a background where we see a lot of legal developments, in the sense that 73rd and 74 amendments through the Gram Sabha, Gram Panchayat was legalized at constitutional level. So states for the first time engage with the institutions of Indic local governance, right? So what do you think should be the state's role in management of these institutions, or to supervise these institutions? Because I totally agree that these institutions were very helpful. They also, kept the community together. But there were also certain shortcomings. For example, the representation of women. For example, we talked about the Northeast. So one would recall that during, when this 33% women reservation bill was passed in local bodies, there was a huge uproar. And to this day, entire country has 33% reservation in Gram Sabhas everywhere. But Northeast, especially Nagaland, doesn't have it because of certain concerns. Women shouldn't have representation in decision making bodies like these. So first, and secondly, I would like to ask, so for example, we talk about institutions, but the life is continuously changing, and it may be changing for bad, it may be changing for good, but the reality is it is changing, right? So are the complexities. Even villages are not villages anymore due to the influx of technology there. So how do
Yes.
you think that these institutions can evolve with the changing times, so that they remain vital to our village life, at the same time also adapt to the coming of technology and coming of the new age? Thank you.
I think very good questions, Nakulji. Excellent questions. And I think you have brought a lot of things into perspective. आज का ही नहीं, कल के भी सेशन को हम इस पर्सपेक्टिव से इवैल्यूएट कर सकते हैं. आई थिंक दैट इज अ कॉशन दैट वी मस्ट ट्रेड while looking at our ancient systems. And तानिया जी ने भी repeatedly कहा कि perfect नहीं थे, shortcomings थे, and of course shortcomings exist in all institutions and all mechanisms. So yeah, great questions. I would really be eager to hear Tanya ji's response.
I think Nakulji has made very pertinent insights, and I agree with a lot of them. And yes, shortcomings are always there. There's no system that is perfect. But I would like to also bring into the picture the data that I brought in yesterday in the initial slides. What is right about this current system that we have in place? How are they, at least in the earlier times, they were self-sufficient, they were contributing, they were, not migrating, they were not. So in today's times, we see all of that happening. So no matter how, like I told you in the earlier, paper that I also shared in the group, I think, which was about your land is my land, now what? That is about from Pranab Mukhopadhyay's research at Goa University. How when the government brought in this so-called quote-unquote democratic constitutional setup, you see what happened to the people. They, in the end, reverted back to the Gaonkari system. It brought in individualism, it brought in selfishness, it brought in disrespect for the natural resources, and it went into, so when one goes into a deeper study of the practices that have been continuing for millennia, and it is still there, by the way, as I told you, the traditional, so if this current democratic or constitutional 73rd, 74th amendment, if that has been working perfectly well, then why are the villages in such a decrepit state right now? There's nothing right about it. Nothing right that is happening except political gimmickry that is happening. They are still living like beggars. In fact, they were better off even during independence time. If you see the GDP that India was producing at that time, for a looted country, they were still managing to, and it's because of the ingenuity of the Indian people. That has been said by many people who were ambassadors from the US and UK to India. They have written it in their books that a 3 to 4% GDP, even when you get independence, new independence, that is something commendable. But who is doing it? It is definitely the people. The state is not doing it. So this is something that we should look at from a perspective of shortcomings, yes, but give it to the people to decide how to deal with these shortcomings. No person wants to live in a particular place, which has, we see a lot of cities, towns that are so-called great, progressive, financially, etc., etc. Are they free of crime? Are they free of, subjugation of the weaker section of society? Are they free of slums? Are they free of, anything? No. So you cannot say get rid of the entire system, or you cannot say even the 73rd or 74th amendment has gone through a lot of deliberation. I think 9 or 10 committees sat down over a period of 50 years or 40 years in order to come to this watered down 73rd, 74th amendment. If you look at the history also of this. 67th and 68th Amendment was what Rajiv Gandhi introduced initially, where he gave them a lot of autonomy, the panchayat system. What happened? The states revolted because they did not want to let go of the power play that happens by giving these villages autonomy. So they revolted. They did not pass it in the parliament. He had to water it down so badly that he had to make it into a state subject to please the states. This was also a political game. And then he said, you do whatever you want to do. You set up whatever administrative machinery you want for these villages. Every state can set up as per its own needs, the panchayat machinery. And he gave them total play because he wanted them to be with them in the longer run. It was all a political vote bank thing. It was not for the panchayats to come into play. It was just you tick the check boxes, but then you keep your vote bank safe. So it is not a perfect bill in itself. It's very problematic. If you ask the villagers, did they approve of it? Did they like it? They're not bothered. They don't even know. And if they come to know, they will be the first one to even revolt against it. So these are certain key points that we should look at when we talk about women reservation. If you look at the Arthashastra also, there are many special provisions that Kautilya himself gives for women. When they are getting a divorce, which he calls moksha. Divorce was a practice even in ancient times. It's all nonsense that people talk that we don't have divorce in the Hindu way of life. No, they have. People, you go to the tribal areas now. Today they are living with somebody. Tomorrow they will leave and go and live with somebody else. Nobody raises an eye. Nobody is subjugating women there. I know personally so many people who live in tribal areas of Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. They tell me that today my mother was she lived with my father for 10 years, and he was the head of the panchayat, by the way. And one day they had a fight. They broke up. They have 3 children. The children were handed over to the father. The mother went and lived with another person, and she's living, and they're all living in the same village, by the way. So this person is telling me, an uneducated person is telling me with no second thought. They're not even bothered.
Yes.
So when I look at that, I just want to say that we have a different perception in our mind about women being subjugated. Is that the reality? Is that the truth? We need to revisit. I'll give you one more example before I close this answer to this question. There's a particular village, a very ancient village. It's called Kelambakam. It is somewhere in Tamil Nadu. There's a person who's written a book. I'll share that in the group also. It's a very old book, and some Britisher has written the foreword to it. It was written in colonial times. He writes that in India, women are said to hold a subordinate position. It is said that they are simply childbearing machines. This is all the propaganda that you get to hear. Such views are thrust upon us by certain writers who pretend to intimately know the manners and customs of the communities, but they know next to nothing about the Hindu life. The keen observer of the inner life of Hindu society will have no difficulty in discovering that the poorest Indian villager loves his wife as tenderly and as affectionately as the most refined mortal on earth. So the women, he says, are so free, in this small village that you go to any village, ask the people there how subjugated your women, and they will look at you like you are some alien. What kind of question are you even asking? They will ask. I have interviewed so many people who have, now moved abroad. They have come from villages in Bihar and all. I have interviewed them, and they are now multimillionaires, billionaires. And they say that, I grew up in a village. I went to a village school. My mother was the most empowered woman I knew, and she was a village lady, by the way. She said she would even beat up my father. Even now, you see Gulabi Gang, the movie that came out long back. In villages, you will see women have so much of strength that they will gather together and form gangs to beat up men who are drunkard. You go to Ralegaon Siddhi, the women there, the perception that is built that we will empower women, where if you have to empower women, then women in the first place are not empowered they are not getting, they have to empower themselves. I cannot say, maine power diya hai tumko. So that means you had the power, now you're giving them. वो power जो है foreign object है. No, none of our epics, Itihas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, they talk about the husband and wife disrespecting each other. Draupadi had 5 husbands. Did anybody except Duryodhan, which was the exception? And you know what kind of end he met, right? What the epics teach us, what kind of Ravan he met an end, which means they're saying that this is not the way to treat women, and this is not how women will be treated. So village women are very free and very empowered. Let's not, maybe the uproar I given to that, maybe what, must have come from the women also themselves. कि हमको नहीं पढ़ना है political झमेलों में. There will be some activist women, which are an exception, but the women don't want to get into this rubbish. You see, Rabadi Devi of Lalu Yadav, she didn't want to get into politics. She was pushed into it because her husband forced her into it. So village women and the uproar, you have to go into those details also. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from the women themselves? Is it coming from the men folk? What are the reasons? Are they trying to protect their women? Are they saying that their women don't want to get into it? What are the exact reasons? You cannot rely on newspapers and mainstream media and are telling you that, they are keeping them down. And even when these women supposedly become elected and, come to power, you know what they do? They put their husbands in the seat. They say, कि हमको नहीं करना है, तुम करो. हम जा रहे हैं रोटी बनाने. And I'm not joking.
Yeah,
So,
Panchayat web series is the best example for
yes.
this.
So,
Yeah. So Tanya ji, let's take Varsha ji's question also, and
I
then
hope Nakul ji that's answered your question.
Ma'am, I have a bit of different views, but I think this is not the time because of time lag. We can discuss it some other time.
Okay, sure.
Nakul ji, your voice is cracking.
No,
Maybe you
I'm
can
saying
type it.
on the second aspect, I think I have a bit different views because I've also worked on ground. I worked on a project in Maharashtra. I was there with the tribal people, Korku tribals, worked on malnutrition and other issues, and also saw these kind of. So, anyways, we can talk about these things later on because of paucity of time right now.
Yes, Nakul ji, since you said that you have worked on the ground, I think it will be very relevant and useful for all of us here if you can share some insights. In fact, I do understand the vantage point from which you are coming, because Tanya ji, कभी कभी कैसा होता है कि हम जो हमारा सिस्टम ऐसा था, ये सारी अच्छी बातें थी, but the lived reality at times in the ground may be very, very different.
What is the lived reality? In Rajasthan, elder women get married to younger men. Do you know that is a practice?
No, that's
you cannot. I'm just saying you cannot impose a particular field study on the entire country.
Yeah, true. That is true. I mean, that is totally true. And then there are multiple realities existing at the same time, right? So for different classes, different kinds of things are happening, right? For particular jati of women, a particular reality could be a possible thing, but for others, and I'm not talking from an activist viewpoint. What I'm saying is, maybe being a devil's advocate, just to put a contrary argument. So, I totally get that there have been empowered women and they were not empowered by men. They were empowered naturally, right? But there were also women that were, all sorts of violence was happening and, pressure. So,
I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that domestic violence cases
some
also
representation.
happen.
And then I also understand the curse of Pradhan Pati, right? The woman is not interested in that. But, so because when I talk about how state engages with these kind of institutions, I think what state, due to, in committees also, these kind of things have come up, that how do we empower women? For example, the ration card thing, the woman is considered as the head of the family. It could be a path breaking thing, in many terms, because Karta always used to be men, right?
See,
So
I would only say one thing to cut this short. I just say that the government has to make customized, kind of, it cannot be a blanket. That's what the government tries to do.
I totally agree, because there are women's rights issues that only women can handle, right?
Yes.
For example, menstruation kind of issues in village, women's health related issues.
Yes, you will see many government systems all around. That's why I say it has to be left to the people to decide. There is a significant population of women that are living there.
But there are also dynamics that are there, and one has to agree that men enjoy a lot more freedom in terms of deciding.
I also agree with this point.
To that. I'm sorry, I do not subscribe. There are many communities where the women are in a more dominant position, and I can give you those field studies.
There could be communities like Nayars are there, some northeastern communities, but that's not a reality everywhere.
To give a blanket statement, I do not agree with that. I have seen
so
and read.
Yours a blanket statement. So my reality is also a reality.
I'm not a blanket. I'm saying I cannot say that men are in a dominant position or women are in a dominant position.
I totally get what Nakul is saying also.
And we have to also see the states lacking. The state is lacking in you cannot be, an enforcer without understanding the ground realities that are coming.
I think we have to adopt a very middle ground approach.
There are certain pockets where the men are suppressed, or they are not getting, then you take that approach. If there are certain pockets where the women are not and they have certain needs and certain wants, you take that approach as it is, but have a very democratic understanding, listening, do a committee kind of a thing, understand. I don't think the government gives in too much into those things. They just want to give into popular opinions. That is a problem that we see. And
let's continue this discussion in the next class. We will take Varshaji's question now, and with her question, we will close this session. I'm sure we have 4 more days to go, so there'll be much more scope for discussion. And I do understand both of you are saying. Even I had very similar questions what Nakulji had raised. Yes, Varshaji. Are you there? Okay, Varshaji is there, but maybe she's not able to hear. Okay, Varshaji, you can type your question in the chat box if there are.
Yes, I think I had a word with Varshaji yesterday. She wanted to say that she had visited Ralega Siddhi and she kind of, saw the realities, and she was just telling me all those things that she saw and what was. So I think that was what she meant, actually. I don't know if she can unmute herself or not.
Okay, yeah, she's there. Varshaji, there is some network issue at your end. We are not able to hear you properly.
Yes.
Is everyone able to hear her?
No, I'm not able to hear her.
Varshaji, I think there is some network issue at your end. Varshaji, can you type? We are not able to hear you. Yeah, I think she's facing some network issue. Varshaji, maybe you can type. So Hemangi ji has put in a comment. Empowerment cannot be bestowed upon someone. That's true. It's just a way of life. It comes naturally. The moment someone says, I've empowered women, then one is putting oneself on a higher pedestal. That's absolutely true, Hemangi ji. So if there are no more questions, I think we can conclude and close. I think we can probably wait a minute and see if Varshaji is able to type or able to speak. But I think it was an interesting discussion, and I would request participants to come up with more such engaging questions where we can deliberate. Tanya ji, I request you to share the titles of the books that you mentioned in today's session. I just noted one. S.K. Chakravarti's Ethics in Management. That is one that I've noted. Arjun Kadian's book on Haryana, Land of Gods, that I know, and I will share it in the WhatsApp group. So participants can please keep track of the material that is being shared, because sometimes the group may be inundated with a lot of information and you may lose it. So you can copy paste it in your for your own self. So yes, I think, Tanya ji, we will close today's session and we will continue tomorrow on the same path. Is that right?
Yes, I think before I end, I'd just like to give a context of Margaret Mead. I don't know how many of you must have heard about her. She is a sociological researcher. She went to Papua New Guinea, and she did a study of the Aborigines there. And those Aborigines, it's a standard that people follow. Margaret Mead's. She was a European. She went and she saw these Aborigines where the women went out to work and the men stayed at home and took care of the children. And if any child was born with a deformity, the women would go to the river and drown them. She was aghast. She found it inhuman. She found it this, that, and the other, whatever. And she tried to stop, and she tried to, say no. She was imposing her, ways onto them. And the other thing was, she said, why you are sitting at home? You should go and work. The women, they said, this has always been the way. And she tried to put into their mind that, women are supposed to be feminine and men are supposed to be masculine. They should go. And she said, who are you to tell us? We always perform like this. We are like this. आप क्यों अपना जो है customs और way of thinking और ये सब और preconceived notions हम पे थोप रहे हो? हमको जीने दो जैसे हम जी रहे. We are okay with it. So Margaret Mead says something very, very, very pertinent there. She says when one approaches a totally, totally different, opposite way of living with somebody, then one should always keep a mind that is free of prejudices, an open mind, and see people and let them you just note, you just observe. You don't impose your beliefs onto them. And if that is working for them, leave it to them. If they would solve it within their own communities, you just have to make those communities open and participative enough. That is where the state comes in. So this is where I would just like to kind of end this.
Yeah, I think Tanya ji, it is very pertinent that you have brought in Margaret Mead's work, because her work is extremely acclaimed and noteworthy when it comes to ethnographic research. And ethnographic research is where a researcher goes and stays with the community, spends time with the community, and then produces an ethnographic account about that group of people. So I will also put Margaret Mead's book in the WhatsApp group. उनका काम बहुत ही well known है, and उसके बाद जितने भी ethnographic studies हुए हैं वो उनके काम को आगे लेके जाके, या उन्होंने ethnography method को बहुत अच्छे से develop किया. And I've just put in the chat box what Tanya ji was saying.
And you know what was the reasoning for drowning those deformed kids? They said that why should we lead them to a life of discomfort? We are letting them get moksha so that they can be born again. They believed in different customs, different beliefs. You see in the Mahabharat, Ganga, who is Shantanu's wife, she drowned 7 of her children in the river. You might look at it and say, oh my God, aghast you are, but no, I mean, you have to look at angles that are different from yours. You go to a village in Odisha, that is also, August Comte is also a very great
Sociologist, yeah.
sociologist. He says, when I went to, the same thing happened with the colonial people. They went to Indian villages and they saw the pitra, how they take care of the pitra. They see dead people walking amongst them. And he was shocked because this is not a concept that he was new to. And he tried to, drive some sense into their head. They said, no, this is how we have always lived and it has worked for us. We are okay with it. So that is also certain aspects that one has to look at it and understand and then also empathize with it.
Yes, in research, we call it the emic and the etic perspective. Of course, that's a quite layered and nuanced aspect of research methodology. Emic is when you look at and study a community from an insider's perspective. They give you data and you respect that and you report that. Etic is when you do it from an outsider's perspective. So I encourage participants to explore this from the point of view of research methodology also. Since all of you are faculty members, that would also be help. I'm assuming. So with this, let us close today's session. So thank you everyone for joining the session today.